On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Raptors, is that MGMT I hear? Because we're about to talk about some kids.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Wednesday, February the 5th. It is trade deadline eve, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. Been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can also find the show on Instagram. You can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server. Great place to be around deadline time. Lots of fun stuff going on in there. The Fake Trade Sickos channel is popping off, man. Come hang out in our little listener family there over on the Discord. You can also go and support the daily Locked On Raptors newsletter, where you get fresh piping hot blogs from me 5 days a week. You get Katie Hind, a League at Large pieces 4 times a week. Michael Shear every Thursday. Basketball poetry, breaking it all down. Josh Lloyd fantasy tips, links to the best coverage around the NBA. Lots to get into there, and it's 100% free. So go to the QR code on the screen or the link in the description of the podcast if you're listening on audio, and go and subscribe. We're nearing 1,700 subscribers. So many little sickos in there getting those emails every day. Let's push us towards 2K, shall we? Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Down the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase, and we are off and running here on your Wednesday edition of the show, talking about a Toronto Raptors 121-115 loss to the New York Knicks that was all kinds of exciting as the kids, the youths, the rookies playing heavy minutes, closing this one out. Really fun stuff to behold for a Raptors team that I think was kind of giving a look into the future of what the last part of this season is probably going to look like. And hey, it's going to look like that. I think we'll all make our peace, win or lose. Here to talk about it is our pal Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7, from Sportsnet, from Sportscasting, from Basketball Insiders, from all over the damn place. Big V, how the hell are you, pal?
I'm great, man. I'm great. This is the type of game that I live for. You get competition. You get a fun game. You see the young guys do some fun things. And then you take the L.
Man, your metamorphosis into little tank piggy this year has been quite a thing to track, and I know a lot of the listeners are really enjoying it as well. As a nice counterbalance to me, the anti-tanking boomer. We are going to get into the struggle points of this game, Scottie Barnes' lack of efficiency. Let's put it that way. We got the good, the bad, and the coming up later on too. But let's start, Big V, with the rookies, with the youth movement, with the Raptors closing this game out with 3 rookies on the floor against the New York Knicks, as Jacoby Walter, Jamal Shead, Jonathan Mogbo, along with Scottie Barnes and Grady Dick at the end, make a really spirited effort at a comeback here after a second quarter that kind of seemed like it was going to make this into a blowout. Really impressive stuff in the second half. Jamal Shead, 16 points, 3 boards, 9 assists, super effective, just getting downhill with reckless abandon, dusting guys off the bounce, hitting threes. You get Jacoby Walter. Lots of interesting stuff going on with him. 13 points, 5 of 7. Jonathan Mogbo, the defense, the vertical finishing, just filling in as the small ball 5 with Jakob Poeltl out. Overall impressions of the youths in this game. And what did you think of Darko Rajakovic's call to just say, hey, let's let it ride with these guys down the stretch?
I love the call, first off, just like rewarding those young guys for playing hard, playing intense, playing with just extreme pace. And I think that's something that really helped with the Knicks being on the second night of a back-to-back. And it felt like, are the Knicks kind of running out of steam here? And the Raptors just going to ride these young legs to victory. I think that was a good call. And yeah, I think getting these young guys the opportunity, the way Jamal Shead played, I think that sort of intensity that he can bring. And we've seen, Darko has talked about the MIG and having that guy at the point of attack, just bringing that ball pressure, that intensity. And obviously, Davion Mitchell has been missing for a little bit. So I think to have Jamal Shead sort of really apply that pressure and everyone else kind of feed off that energy has been excellent. And then you mentioned Jonathan Mogbo. I thought his defense was awesome. He had a couple of possessions going up against Karl Anthony Towns where I thought he did a really good job. Was able to you really use his instincts really well to just kind of not foul, but be like, hey, I can apply ball pressure. Especially on those drives when Towns is kind of taking it to the hole, just get his hand on the ball and make it tough on the finish. So I thought that was really good to see. And yeah, I like Jacoby Walter a lot, man. Like I think he just comes in and he literally looks like a vet when he's out there. You're gonna see
Man.
some of the typical rookie mistakes still.
Mm.
And Jalen Brunson's gonna get you from time to time on both ends. But I think the way he's able to just come in and play with poise, like sometimes you have rookies who missing training camp is almost enough to just derail that entire season.
Sure, yeah.
And the way he's been able to just take in as much information as possible. You talk about him just like wanting to learn as much as he can from everyone around him. He really seems to take those lessons and just bring it to each game.
Yeah, it was a joy to watch these guys kind of cook. And I think the thing that made it even more fun to watch to me was the fact that they were doing it with Scottie Barnes, doing it with Grady Dick. Like, this is what the team's longer term vision is going to be. And I do think it's important down the stretch here. Look, I think this was a very good preview of what to expect, right? They're going to let the rookies run. They're going to let them make mistakes. They're probably going to let them close and lose games, right? Like Jalen Brunson going nuclear in the last couple minutes. Like, that's going to happen against a team full of rookies. That's just part of the deal. But I do think if this is a preview, right, where you're going to still play Scottie Barnes, eventually Immanuel Quickley, his minutes restriction you would think is going to be lifted. He's going to play a little bit more down the stretch of these games as well. RJ Barrett, if you're mixing those guys in with the youths, I think that's the perfect way to close this season. I don't want to see the most important guys completely shut down. I think that's silly. I think that's dumb. And I think you can still lose all the games you want while playing rookies as many minutes as they seem like they're going to play them. And we're still probably going to see Jamison Battle get into the mix. Maybe Ulrich Shamshay by mid-March is in the mix as well and helping to hemorrhage minutes and points when they're on the floor because that's what rookies do. But I think if they're playing with the guys who matter most, that's like really effective developmental basketball that'll also accrue the losses that it seems like a lot of people really want right now. And I think that's kind of a have your cake, eat it too situation, right? Like I think the value of seeing those guys play with the guys they're actually going to be playing with in meaningful minutes in years to come, that's where the proper development takes place. Like I don't really need to see the rookies playing with Kelly Olynyk and Bruce Brown and sort of, guys who are not going to be part of the long-term vision in these close games. Keep the heavy hitters also involved, and I think you've kind of found a perfect balance. Do you agree there, or are you looking for shutdown time for the main guys at some point here to just let the rookies really have the run of the house?
No, I mean, I think it is important to get those guys minutes because we've talked about the importance of Quickley and Scottie playing together, Quickley and Grady Dick and RJ and Yak all being out there and getting those reps in, getting that experience in. Do I think there's going to be opportunities for Jakob Poeltl to as he's dealing with this hip pointer? You're not going to sacrifice his health just, to get those guys out there in such a low stakes situation. And so I think, if it presents itself, an opportunity to get him a rest, to not play back-to-backs, that type of stuff, then sure, go ahead and do it, and I think as we come towards the end of the season, then when you've had a good look at those guys playing together, they feel comfortable, then, maybe you entertain the possibility of, okay, you know what, let's just roll with all the young guys all the time.
Yeah, April for sure. Go nuts. But I do think there's still a lot to be gleaned from playing these guys. And look, like we'll get into it in a second here, but the chemistry between the main guys, still a lot to be desired there. And there's still plenty to work out. Like a lot of lost time with Quickley missing as much time as he did this year, with Barnes missing time early on. Like there's still a lot that needs to be sorted out with the mainstay figures on this team, as much as we want to see run from the rookies here too. Again, I think they can perfectly find a balance here, especially in February with their schedules pretty tough. Like expect a lot of games like that one against the Knicks throughout this month, I think, where they're competitive, they're sprightly, but they probably lose because rookies are getting the lion's share of important minutes down the stretch, which is fine. It's all good as long as they're playing competitive, fun, developmentally friendly basketball. Before we move on here, I want to introduce a new segment for the rest of the season where after every single loss, we're going to take a tribunal into the court of tank ethics and determine whether a loss was ethical or not regarding the tank. Court is in session. I need a gavel. I just have a little ramekin I'm using right now for my tea bags. Yeah. In session here, Big V. Was this an ethical or unethical Toronto Raptors loss? It seems like it was ethical, but I don't know. Like, you don't play your main guys down the stretch. You play rookies. Was it unethical at all? What do you got?
Oh, I got 100% ethical. I think,
Okay. Yep.
part of that too is because you were in a situation where you were looking for something different, right?
Yep.
This wasn't, oh, the starters are really doing a great job, we're going to pull them, Now that would be unethical. This was a situation where the starters looked like they needed some help, and you were looking somewhere for a change in dynamic. And, you get outscored 38-17 in the second quarter. And I think that's where you have these young guys come in and make the impact. And so you're just riding that.
100%. I am fully with you. Ethical loss. It has been declared. Again, if someone wants to give me a gavel, send me one. If there are gavel companies out there who want to support the podcast, I don't know if there is like a specific gavel company. If not, maybe I'm going to start that company. We'll see. But the Court of Tank Ethics is in session for the rest of the season. The Toronto Raptors not guilty of unethicality in this one. That's great. We're going to come back on the other side and see if we can invent more fake words as we talk about the Raptors and where things went wrong in this game against the Knicks. The second quarter, not so good. And Scottie Barnes, his efficiency. Are we concerned? We'll get to that coming up in just a sec. Today's show is brought to you by our good friends over at Game Time, the single best place to buy tickets for the sporting events you want to go to. There's also concerts, comedy shows, theater shows. It's all on there for you to go and peruse. And Game Time Picks is going to help you get the best seats for the best price that you want to pay. The app does all the hard work for you. It filters out all the fluff so you only get to peruse the deals that are worth searching. They will just show you, hey, these are the best seats for the best price. Buy these ones. And you say, okay, Game Time, I will. Or if you want to go peruse around, you can, because they got things like seat views and all that to go and make the user experience on the app very, very friendly. I'm a regular user of Game Time. I use them all the time. I bought tickets for my in-laws to go see the PWHL team in Toronto, the Toronto Raptors over the holidays. I have bought tickets to go see WNBA games abroad. I will be buying tickets to see WNBA games in Toronto. Wearing my Tempo shirt today and the new hoodie that came in yesterday. Very excited for that. Very excited to use Game Time to buy my tickets to go see the Toronto Tempo. It's all there for you to go peruse over at Game Time. You get, of course, covered with Game Time's lowest price guarantee as well. If you find a better deal somewhere else, they're going to give you 110% of the difference in a refund. Plus, your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time with easy cancellation options if something comes up. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Down the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account. Redeem the code LOCKEDINNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. Back at it here, Big V, Vivek Jacob from Raptors in 7 and Sportsnet as we talk about the Raptors falling to the New York Knicks 121-115 on whatever the hell night last night was. Tuesday night? Yeah. Scottie Barnes. Weird game from him in this one, I thought. He's been really effective for like the better part of a month and a half now. He's been really, really like driving positive minutes. The defensive uptick has been remarkable. I thought this was one of his flatter efforts in quite a while, and I thought this was maybe the most tunnel vision we've really ever seen from Scottie Barnes. I think in that second quarter in particular, where the Raptors lose 38-17 after a really spirited first quarter where it was this sort of slow it down, methodical half-court possession for half-court possession game. The Raptors found good looks within that, despite it maybe not being a game suited to their strengths. And they threw haymakers and, went toe-to-toe and won that first quarter. I thought in the second, they stayed too locked into the half-court game, and that's where things kind of got hurt. The flow of what they were trying to run wasn't really there, and I think Scottie Barnes was a big culprit for this. In that second quarter, he goes 2 of 9, no rebounds, no assists, like a very strangely ineffectual quarter from Scottie Barnes, and I think he was just getting a little bit mid-range happy there, right? Like I think he's still got to find balance between this newfound office he's operating within and sort of the greater health of the offense as a whole. Don't think he found that balance last night. I think Immanuel Quickley suffered for it. Quickley took just 3 shots in the first half of this game. I don't think it was really anything Quickley was doing or not doing. It was just stuff wasn't really flowing. And the sort of chaos threes that he gets all the time, sort of in movement off of broken plays, off of offensive rebounds, things like that, they weren't really there to be had. Just kind of a bizarre, strange, janky quarter. And I think Scottie Barnes was kind of at the center of it. What were your thoughts on Scottie's performance in this one? A weird off night for him and a run of really good play of late.
Yeah, it was an off night for him, and that's going to happen in the nature of an 82 game season. I think that in terms of him getting a little too shot happy, a little, taking the air out of the ball a little bit, I thought that we've seen in the past that he looks forward to these games, right? Where he's got a bit of history with someone going up against them and wants to almost like prove a point. And we've seen it against Pascal Siakam. And, there's been times where it's been really good results. And then you have a night like this where it's like, okay, you know what? Let me try and prove a point here against Precious Achua.
What a sentence.
And yeah, I think, in terms of the mid-range, probably looking for his, I think that he kind of went in and out in terms of the times he did that. And I think a little bit in terms of like just looking at the games where, Quickley's there, you've got most of the guys that you want in there. I feel like he still doesn't know where his offense is going to come from when the whole group is out there. Obviously, RJ wasn't there in this one. As opposed to, I thought, his best stretches were kind of in that all bench, all kids lineup plus him, if you will. And I think that's where just that comfort of when it's those guys, he knows he can take a shot whenever he wants, and he almost just eases into it. And then when it's the other guys, it's kind of like, okay, I've got to take this now because I don't know when the next one will come. And then it just became a little too shot happy in that second quarter.
Yeah, it was just like a weird one, right? Like, this is not typically who Scottie Barnes is, right? He's kind of wired to pass first. It's always been the thing, and it's been a criticism of some in the past, which I don't think is really fair because it's what makes him awesome. But yeah, this was just sort of I'm just going to go to work, and, the flow of the offense is secondary to my desire to score over Precious Achua. I think that's a very good point that you made. Yeah, just like again, this game opened up when the Raptors stopped trying to play the Knicks slow it down half court game, right? The first quarter, I thought, really admirable the way they went toe to toe with the Knicks in the half court and got really good stuff. They shot like better than 60%, I think, in that first quarter, and just like really clean looks they were creating against like a Knicks defense that was giving its all. Like, that was a quarter of both teams executing extremely well on offense against very good defense. I thought just like a really high level, almost playoff style quarter. And then, you try to play that game against the Knicks for longer than a quarter, and odds are you're going to start to lose your footing because the Knicks are just better at that. And when the Raptors opened this one up in the third quarter, things started to flow. They scored 1.73 points per possession in transition in this game. I feel like most of that came in the third and fourth quarters, where they just like, all right, we got to sort of not go against this gigantor team of New York Knicks who has like Precious and Towns and Ariel Hook-Porty all on the floor at the same time. We got to open this thing up a little bit. And I thought they did that really effectively. And credit Jamal Shead in particular for kind of driving that. I mean, that dude was just running down the floor like a maniac all night long. Glass stuff in this game.
One time too fast for his own good.
Yeah, right. No doubt. The rebounding stuff in this game wasn't very good. That was part of the sort of struggle points in this one, specifically in that second quarter too. Jakob Poeltl doing his best against Karl Anthony Towns, who's a freaking monster, an absolute titan of a man. And, there was very little in the way of like help gang rebounding. I think that was another area where Scottie Barnes wasn't super effective, like 3 rebounds for him in this game. You need more than that from Scottie, especially when Towns is going toe to toe with Poeltl like that and making Poeltl's life miserable while he's also dealing with a hip pointer on top of it. Apparently, there's just again, they lose this game in the second quarter. Everywhere else, they played a damn good game. Very different shapes it took in the first quarter versus the third and fourth, but pretty well executed all told outside of that very ugly second. Any parting shots here on that second frame or sort of struggle points in this game before we move on to the good, bad, and
I mean, I think we covered it off in terms of just the isolation ball that was kind of happening and just the lack of ball movement. Um, I think, probably and just in general, you give up 38 points, like that's a long way from the defense that we have been seeing. And
Totally.
I think, obviously the quality of opponent has factored into the Raptors ranking number one in defensive rating over the previous 10 games. And you went up against a Knicks offense that is tremendous this season. And obviously Karl Anthony Towns has given all sorts of problems to the Raptors in the
What a
games he's
monster,
played.
man. He's so good. I'm so happy for him. Go Towns.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, in terms of the defense, just, I think in terms of the screening actions, it's just a tough thing to really deal with Brunson and Cat and Bridges popping off the way he has, right? Like I think he's had some really good games against Toronto. And I think that's proven just very, very difficult for the Raptors to deal with.
Totally. Also, just like weird flow with Quickley's minutes restrictions and sort of how they're deploying it, where he's playing most of his minutes in first halves and then just kind of not seeing the floor again. Would like to see them maybe try to strike a little bit better balance with that, or just level him up at some point here, and that he's kind of getting back into the swing. This was the most minutes he's played since he came back, 21. Good to see. You hope that he can kind of get more in the swing and be part of these closes to games too, right? Like, as much as Jamal Shead's awesome, I still think there's room for Quickley to close these games and get some reps with Scottie Barnes and high leverage minutes as well. It's all very important. We'll come back on the other side here, Big V. Close it out with the good, the bad, and the Speaking of Quickley, is he good at defense now? We'll get to that coming up. Just one sec. Today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. What are some of your relationship green flags? We often hear about red flags, but we should avoid. But what if we focus more on identifying the positive signs in our relationships, those green flags? If you're not sure what they look like, therapy can help you identify them, actively practice them, and even embody that green flag energy yourself. Whether you're dating, married, building a friendship, or just working on yourself, therapy can help you form relationships that love you back. It's a really important thing. Maybe you have a spouse or a significant other who you want to be able to connect to more, and you want to just sort of have an open line of communication. Therapy can be a great way for helping you to do that, and having someone to talk to, offer insights as to sort of what your motivations are and things like that can be very, very helpful. It can help you develop boundaries and improve your communication skills. Talking, it's really important. Just having those communication skills opened up, it's huge. It can be a game changer. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA today. You get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Back at it here with Big V, Vivek Jacob from Sportsnet, Raptors in 7, a whole internet cricket commentary, being handsome, etc., etc. Big V, let's go good, bad, shall we? A thing we liked, thing we didn't like, thing that has us a little bit intrigued from the latest Toronto Raptors basketball game, the way we wrap up every single episode of this here Raptors podcast on the heels of a game played by your beloved local basketball team. What you got for your good in this one?
I mean, I got to go with Jamal Shead. I thought he
Yep.
was just awesome. Yeah, I think pace is something that the Raptors needed in this game. Again, you talk about taking advantage of, or as much as advantage as possible of the Knicks being on the second night of a back-to-back. I thought he was just, you don't associate leadership with rookies, but I thought his
With
leadership
him, maybe you
stood
do.
out. And I thought, setting the tone defensively, and then just constantly pushing the pace and kind of bringing guys along with him on the offensive end. That's what you want from your point guard. And, the numbers are obvious in terms of the 16 points and 9 assists. But I think, developmentally, like the way the next couple of months could play out, I think it could be a really fun stretch watching Jamal.
Yeah, man. I am like these next couple of months, I think will give us a look as to whether Jamal Shead just sort of coming into next year as the incumbent expected backup point guard is viable. And, signs are pointing towards maybe that just being the way they can go about this, right? And not have to go worry about finding a backup point guard on the market. They can just say, hey, Jamal, take it and run, buddy. Like he's wizened. He's a proven winner from his time in college. He's like well beyond his years when it comes to that sort of intangible stuff. And hey, the threes are falling. He's shooting 35% from three. I think it's 41% over his last 28 games. I think it is. Shout out to Ben Chapman in the Discord for pulling that stat. Yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. Big on Jamal Shead. My good. Also sticking with the point guards here. Immanuel Quickley's defense. Look, it's been a very fleeting stretch of him back in the lineup. He's not playing a lot of minutes, but I thought he's looked pretty punchy at the point of attack. And in this one against Jalen Brunson, who is not an easy cover, he is all chest and elbows and bumps and nasty. I thought Quickley did a pretty good job of kind of hanging with it, sort of absorbing him into his chest. There were a couple times he got bumped off his spot, a couple times pretty dramatically, because that's what Jalen Brunson does. But overall, I think the fight from Quickley on defense has been good. The pickup points have been high, and he's kind of, living and breathing that sort of defensive ethos they've been preaching all season long. And I think his screen navigation has been way better. Like he's like, blowing up screens. He's getting above the screen. He's making it hard to even, make contact with him. He's sticking with guys, staying on their hip. Again, there were a couple of buckets made over him, I think, through very good defense. This was the case on both ends in the first quarter of this game in particular, but really encouraged by what we're seeing from Immanuel Quickley. That game on, what was it, Sunday or Friday? What was it, against the Bulls? I thought he had a couple really nice big plays, that big chase down and steal and all of that. Like there's some defensive juice here with Quickley that if you couple that with what we're seeing from Grady Dick and RJ Barrett when he's healthy, that's it's pretty exciting stuff. What you got for your bad?
Well, in terms of the bad, I want to say that I'm just looking big picture here. And so with Luka Doncic getting traded, I just wanted to get this take out where I think the NBA has to look at sort of the marriage of the second apron and the Supermax.
Yeah.
Like that was a boneheaded trade. And there's no way giving Luka Doncic the Supermax should put ownership into a thought process of, oh, you know what? We don't think the extra $100 million is worth it.
Yeah. Like he's what that contract is for. Like,
yeah.
Crazy. Yeah.
And, you look at, part of why I want the tank for the Raptors is because of the cap crunch the Raptors are going to face. Because the extensions that have been given to Scottie to Quickley, possibly for RJ to come. And so I think you're forcing teams into these decisions much sooner than they should be, right? The Raptors shouldn't be faced with this type of crunch so quickly with such a young group. Minnesota shouldn't have been forced to trade Karl-Anthony Towns. Denver shouldn't have been forced to move off of Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. And so I think that is the bad I think I'm concerned about with the league. And I think there's got to be some way where you can cater to the player that you've drafted and give them what they deserve. By the way, that's another thing. Like Luka being punished for being traded and now not being eligible for $100 million plus is
Nico Harrison did him dirty, man.
Is another thing that the NBPA is going to have to look at and figure out, because he's met all of the requirements in terms of being an all NBA guy, a superstar MVP guy. And so I think there's got to be a way for you to keep your homegrown talent. Yeah. And maybe, you give them the money, like say you're able to offer them 35% of the cap, but it only counts towards 30% of the cap, something like that.
Yeah, it'd be great. Look, man, we're going to be talking about this trade for a very long time, it seems. And like everything is colored by it now. And it's fascinating and insane, and gets more insane the more you think about it every single day. No doubt this is going to be top of mind. Not what I expected from you from the bad in this one, but I'm glad we got more Luka coverage in here because I think it's good for SEO. My bad. Look, I did mean to comment on this in the podcast I did Monday. Just it was in my notes and I completely forgot to get to it. But RJ Barrett going back into that game on Sunday after he took that really scary looking fall, hit his head, was down for a minute, came back in and just needed a timeout to get back in there. I'm not even putting this necessarily on the Raptors like medical staff, because it seems as though RJ was symptom free concussion wise until before yesterday's game when they ruled him out. But like, I don't know, man. Stop messing with head stuff. Like if other sports where guys wear helmets can have like concussion spotters and like very clear protocols for what happens when you take a head hit, the NBA should be looking at this too, because these guys aren't protected the way hockey players or football players are. And I get it. It's not like a head-on collision sport, but sometimes you smack your head against the ground real hard after jumping really high in the air. And like, that's scary and dangerous too. It reminded me, I don't remember if you can remember this, back in, I think it was the 2014 World Cup. Someone on Uruguay, I can't remember exactly who it was, against England, like completely like, and this happens in soccer all the time, but this is just one that stands out to me because it was just so egregious. But this guy, cannot remember the name of the guy to save my life. I can probably go back and look at it. You can go back and look at it. But he goes up for a header, hits his head with some other guy, clearly is concussed, clearly is shaken up, and just gets put back in the game to close out the game. And like, it's just so dangerous. It's so needless. And the NBA needs to look at its concussion protocols. I think that's my bad is RJ Barrett being able to close out that game Sunday, only did not play for the concussion protocol last night. Hopefully he's okay. Head injuries, no joke. To close things out, what you got here?
Well, this is slightly awkward. I completely agree with your take, but for my not to make light of someone on the injury report, but Chris Boucher out with illness as the Raptors approach the trade deadline. That is my
Could be anything, right? Could be anything. Yeah. I mean, look, I'm sick. I missed yesterday's podcast. I'm sick. Everyone's freaking sick. It wouldn't be surprising if he actually is sick. I don't think teams I think we read too much into teams' things around the deadline a little bit just because, we're looking for meaning. I used this in talking with someone in the Discord today. It's like kind of assigning meaning to art that's not there, where it's like, the conch in Lord of the Flies represents the loss of innocence for these children. It's like, I think it's just a shell, man. I think that is sort of what we do with these injuries sometimes, but yeah, certainly interesting, worthy for sure. I think it's in Chris Boucher's case, considering the circumstances. My is Jacoby Walter pull-ups ? He's hit a handful of threes on the pull over the last few games. Seems like there's been one every last 3 or 4 games here. And look, all told, the numbers on the season aren't good. 28.6% on half a pull-up attempt a game. It's nothing, but he is shooting 50% on pull-up twos this season. Again, not huge volume, but if there's pull-up juice to Jacoby Walter, boy, oh boy, do things get real interesting, because that is the shot that makes guard careers. We've seen it time and time again. Let him pull it, man. Let's see what's there. There's a lot to like with Jacoby Walter. If he's hitting pull-up threes, that might be the thing to like the most of all the things to like about Jacoby Walter. File that one under a big time, capital H, capital 7 M's. Big V, let's wrap it here. Anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
Well, not promote, but I'll just quickly add to that, because I guess it's a semi-promotion. I did write about Jacoby's pull-up in my latest newsletter.
Ooh,
and I think
I didn't even know that. I'm a bad host. That's great. Accidental promo.
And I think what's encouraging is that he's knocking some of these down, and I don't even think it's a clean pull-up yet. If you really break it down, he kind of goes into like getting his feet set, then getting his shot set, and then rising up. And so once I think over the summer, Darko and the staff will look to maybe clean that up and try to get it to be just one straight motion, where he is kind of pulling up straight into, elevating off a clean catch. And I think that's where you're seeing a little bit of that, trying to get the ball right, all of that, get the feet right, and then go up. And I think once that happens, that's where maybe we'll see the consistency with it.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be real cool if it was consistent, because that is a game changer. We will leave it there. Go support all of Big V's wonderful work. You can find me at woodleyshawn.bsky.social on the sky. You can go to Discord and subscribe. Link in the description. Just come and join. It's not even subscribing. You're just hitting a link and saying, "Hi, I'm here now." It's a great place. Come hang out, talk ball with your pals. Also, you can go and support the newsletter on the QR code on the screen, link in the description of the podcast, all that good stuff. Much appreciated very much when you go and do that. We will talk to you again on Thursday. We're gonna have 2 shows tomorrow. We'll recap Raptors Grizzlies for 90s night tomorrow morning, and then we will have a post-deadline reaction show, and Big V will be back on Friday for a larger picture post-deadline talk and a look ahead to the stretch drive of the season as well. You have all that to look forward to. Busy times here on the pod and in the NBA. We'll get to all that coming up later. Thanks so much for hanging. Bye-bye. Damn it. Not even close.